Word vomit incoming. Writing here for the first time. Sorry as this will be long and drawn out. I am 33F, have a fiancé 31M, been together for 7 years, engaged for 3 of them. My fiancé cheated on me back in November of 2023, emotional not physical. I am a worse for 2 months with someone from another state we both were acquaintances with. I could sense something off from him for a couple weeks, but never expected it. I found out at first by seeing him switch his phone to DND mode and confronted him immediately. He couldn't get the nerve to tell me and just kept saying I was gonna leave. The next day he told me he had a 20-minute conversation with someone from out of state who he used to date years ago and it was a one-time thing to vent. Looking back, I realize how naive and dumb I was to believe this. However, I was in such shock and could never see him doing anything inappropriate, so initially believed and rug swept. Weeks went by and we fought a lot over this, and I was so hurt because something as small as having a conversation with another woman without my knowledge I consider a betrayal. Then one morning he went to go get his hair cut, which never happens. He always cuts his own at home. He came back acting very off once again, and I just knew there was something more and I wasn't going to get the truth from him. I managed to log into his T-Mobile account and found 2 months of calls and texts. He was calling and FaceTime this person on average an hour per day. I googled the number and found out who it was and realized it was someone who we both knew we were engaged, the whole nine, was not an old friend flame. I immediately went off the rails, cursing him out, telling him to pack and get his shit and leave. I went to my parents for a couple days and didn't hear a word from him until he called me being him back when he realized I took his computer that I bought him. No sorries, no sense of remorse, nothing. I was hurt even more by this than the actual betrayal because it was like I didn't even know or recognize this person that has been my best friend of 6 years. My dad was also going through a major cancer diagnosis at the time and right when this all happened was when we were getting the results, and he didn't reach out at all to me or my family to ask how it went. Once I was back home from my parents, I went off on him again, basically telling him what a puss he was for not even having the humanity to check on my dad. The next morning, he came up to me in the kitchen and hugged me and broke down crying, telling me how sorry he was. It was only about a 15-minute convo because he had to leave for work. Once he got back, he was being back again and mad at me for sending his parents screenshots of Instagram's messages I found, so the little remorse I got seemed to vanish. Deep talks here and there over the next few days about our relationship mostly seemed projecting onto me, never wanting to take full accountability, though he had some very valid points of some things I have done and said in the last that made him feel unloved and made him think I was leaving. A lot of it I could view and see from his point, but still was very frustrating, as some of the things he never not one time brought up to me as issues and wanted to discuss over the years. I told him these were all things we could have talked about and worked through. He also seemed to take no accountability for why I felt depressed and nagged him a lot, and what caused me to make him feel unloved was very lazy around the house, very lazy when it came to work, as we are self-employed, so I felt a lot of the weight was all on my shoulders. I let him do what he wanted when it came to his dreams, which meant him working less to focus on those which I wasn't okay with, which led to me having to take the role of covering most of the bills for a stretch of time. All in all, probably around $8,000 I paid out that he never paid me back for. I became resentful, which I fully admit, and it was like he didn't want to understand that or see why, which I felt was very selfish on his part. Looking back, I can see we had issues and slowly started drifting apart in a sense of not seeing eye to eye on things or not doing things for one another. He never wanted to do things I like to do, like movies, beach, kayaking, so I stopped going with him to his parents, football games he coaches, etc. Though I saw and felt this happening, I still loved him and still had no plans on leaving him. He was and is my best friend. We ended up talking more, and I was initially the one that fought for us and told him whatever little fantasy he was living in was not real and that he needed to get his shit together. The next couple days were rough, but contact with the woman stopped. He never went into detail about the girl and how they even started talking, but kept saying, "I'm not leaving you for some random girl in California," but did say things like he wanted to work on himself. BS, I know. Not that it hurt any less, but I did believe it at first. We started working through hurdles and he would open a little here and there, but could just tell he didn't want to fully, I think, and hope it was because of how ashamed he was. Left his phone completely open and still does. As a couple months went by, I felt as if I didn't have all my questions answered and still felt so lost at how this happened, so I would ask questions that he would barely answer and always try to say he doesn't remember specific details. I ended up messaging the girl myself. Looking back, another dumb mistake, as she was a little C who also had no remorse, and you could just tell how butthurt she was that it didn't end with them riding into the sunset as she had hoped for. She took every opportunity she could to drop as many bombs and hurtful remarks she could, though didn't want to speak to me at all woman to woman when I first found out and reached out to her. She sent me screenshots and everything my broken heart desired. I saw things I wish I never would have, including him telling her he loved her, which was just another jaw-dropping moment, as not in my wildest imagination could he tell another woman he loved them. Also told her he had to watch porn every day because we didn't have intercourse. Of course, all things he never admitted to me. I was absolutely crushed. I couldn't believe it. He cried and begged for my forgiveness and told me he would work the rest of his life at making it up to me. I loved him so much and can't imagine my life without him, so I decided to stay, as we were already 2 months into reconciliation. That was 4 months ago now, and as I guess with all grievances, it gets better with time. I can see the changes he has and is continuing to make, but I still have days where I am absolutely depressed and can't seem to shake it off. I can't seem to fathom the man I have loved and laughed with every day for the last 6 years, my best friend, the one who knew exactly how I felt about cheating. We've discussed this several times. Who knew I would leave if he ever did, could do that knowing the consequences. How do I end? Will I ever know if he truly loves me or loves me the way I love him? I can't imagine life without him, but I also can't imagine being with someone who is capable of hurting and betraying me the way he did. No matter how unhappy I was in the last couple years, I would have never done this to him. I am having major cognitive dissonance and would just like some advice and perspective from others who may have gone through this, going through it. How do you work through it? I have days where I love him and can't wait to marry him, and other days where I literally just want to pack my things and leave without saying a word. Sorry again for the word vomit. It may be tough to hear this, but you will never trust him fully again as long as you stay with him. To be blunt, it will be best if you walk away and start your life again without him. He didn't care and love you enough to check on your father when he was going through major health crisis. It says a lot about the priorities of his life. You were never a priority to him. A man who is in love with a woman puts her first and tries his best to comfort her in her time of needs. Also, you both rug swept his cheating, so he will likely cheat again in the future. Without genuine remorse, he doesn't understand the scope of damages he has caused to your mental health and self-esteem. It's better to throw away 6 years than wasting your lifetime with a cheater. Think carefully whether he is the one for you, because life doesn't give you second chance and wasted time is gone forever. Wish you the best.